company's identity to differentiate yourself in a potential hiring situation. My goal for today is to discuss employee benefits. I'm sure we can all agree that this year has been a difficult year and a different year for almost every single organization. Some employers have had to make layoffs or perhaps furlough some employees or just make some type of some cost constraints, while maybe other employers have been booming during this crisis and have been adding employees and have been growing and adding on new revenue. So regardless of which situation you're in, I think it's very evident and very clear that we're still in a war for talent here locally. I believe the number that I wrote down was, as of October 21st of 2020, there were 5,183 open positions in Rutherford County. And I think that with salaries and compensation being so even and equivalent in a lot of different industries and fighting for multiple different positions, one way that organizations are finding that they can really differentiate themselves and stand out compared to their competitors is through their employee benefits. So as Essence alluded to, my expertise is in the employee benefits arena. I work with employers in Rutherford County and in Tennessee and across the United States and helping them design their benefits. Our company helps them implement those benefits and communicate them to the employees. And then we help them manage those benefits throughout the year. So my goal today in this conversation is to hopefully provide you some ideas that maybe on a personal level with the benefits that you're taking for yourself that your employer is offering you. Maybe it's going to give you some ideas for some things that you could consider or maybe do different. And then also my goal is, if you are an employer and you're in that situation where you're battling to, bring on the top talent and to identify and find those people and then to bring them on board and to differentiate yourself from your competitors, hopefully I can provide you some ideas or maybe some thoughts on best practices or what you could be doing differently in order to maybe make that war on talent just a little bit easier. So without further ado, I'm going to dive right in and share my screen. And as Essence stated earlier, I'd love to have this conversation today be very interactive. So if you want to turn your camera on and if you want to ask questions during this, I love open dialogue. I want this to be engaging and fun. So, and I like to preface this in all my open enrollment meetings that I do for clients. When it comes to benefits, there are no dumb questions. This a lot of times can be confusing and just kind of daunting. So feel free to, to stop me at any time and to ask a question, or if you want me to kind of go over something in further detail, I'm happy to do that. So, and in preparing for today, one of the questions that I was asked is, what benefits are often overlooked or perhaps underutilized by employers? And when I started thinking about how to answer this question, the first thing that came to top of mind was, right now we're in open enrollment season for benefits for a vast majority of employers out there. So I thought, if that's the case, why don't I start by maybe going over some benefits that people generally have a lot of questions about, and then also talk about some benefits that I often see people just, not using or just not enrolling in because perhaps they're maybe not familiar or understand the value of those benefits. So to start out with, I would say the first benefit plan that most people think of in their employee benefits package is their medical options. Traditionally, I see employers offering two different types of medical plans. That's your traditional PPO plan that has office visit copays or perhaps copays for your prescriptions. And then I also see employers offering a second type of plan that's generally a deductible plan that's paired with a health savings account. When I'm in front of employees, a lot of times people ask me, Daniel, what's the best plan for me to to pick to cover myself and my family? And to answer that question, I tell them, let me look at your scenario over the past couple of years and how you've used your health insurance. Are you somebody that, on average, are you going to the doctor's office perhaps once a month? And the reason I ask that is if you are, those office visit copays might make the most sense for you because it's going to make your per occurrence or per going into the doctor's office fee much lower. The second question I ask is, are you somebody that on a month to month basis is taking prescriptions? And I'm not talking about your inexpensive generics that you can get filled a lot of times for free or for less than $5 at Walgreens or Costco. I'm referring to those expensive prescriptions that are costing you a couple $100 every time you fill them. If you're using your prescription coverage that often, that traditional PPO plan is probably going to be a good option for you. If you're like probably 9 or 8 out of 10 people, though, you're not utilizing your health insurance that frequently. You're not using it on a month-to-month basis. And if that's the case, I like to tell employees that the plan option that's probably going to be the best one for you is that high deductible HSA plan. And the reason I tell them that is, generally speaking, the monthly costs for those and the monthly premiums are going to be a lot lower than what you would be paying for that traditional PPO plan with copays. Another thing that I'm a very adamant proponent of is that health savings account. Behind your employer-sponsored 401k or any type of employer-sponsored retirement plan, I think the health savings account is probably the second best financial vehicle that employees can be putting money into. A lot of people don't realize that the money that is put in there is pre-tax. So essentially you're getting money in your pocket every time you put a contribution into there. That money rolls over year after year indefinitely, and you can use it for all medical, dental, and vision expenses. The part that most people often overlook and don't take advantage of with those health savings accounts is the fact that that money in years where you're not using it for qualified medical, dental, or vision expenses can actually be invested just like you would a mutual fund or an individual IRA account. The reason I think that is so vital and so important is if you can invest those dollars in the years where you're not using them and on average have them grow anywhere from 6 to 12% per year, you're essentially creating a safety net account for those years where you actually are going to utilize your deductible expenses and you're going to go in. So many people that are under those high deductible plans have a health savings account started and are putting money in there, but they're then not actually going into their employer portals or the carrier websites and taking advantage of that investment portion. Another thing that I see vastly underutilized when it comes to the health insurance plans are the cost analyzer tools that are made free through most of the carriers' websites. Nowadays, the price for services that you're going to pay for things like an MRI or an ultrasound or any type of procedure that you have, the costs are going to vary dramatically depending on what provider you go to for those services. For example, my wife and I are at a point in our life that we're talking about a family and having kids. And this year for her annual OBGYN visit, her doctor thought it would be beneficial to do an ultrasound just to make sure that everything was going smoothly. So he recommended that she go have that ultrasound done at a facility that was just right across the street from her office visit. And my wife, without asking any questions or looking at any other places that could do that ultrasound, went to where her doctor told her to go. And unfortunately, that's the way most of us have been trained throughout our lives to use our health insurance. Well, in this situation, we got a bill about 3 weeks after she went in for that ultrasound, and the bill was around $680. Now, we're members of United Healthcare, but all the carriers have this tool. Blue Cross, United Healthcare, Cigna, Aetna, Humana, all the big players provide this. We logged into our member portfolio or member profile on the carrier's website, typed in ultrasound, and it pulled up every single provider's office in her network within a 25-mile radius, and it showed the average billing price that those providers will bill insurance for that ultrasound. I kid you not, there was a facility that was about 2.5 miles from our house that would have charged a little over $60 for that ultrasound, as opposed to the facility that she went to where she paid $680. So in this scenario, it would have been very easy for my wife, Rachel, to go to that less expensive facility, have the ultrasound done there, and then for that facility to send that information to her OBGYN's office. Very few people are taking advantage of actually shopping services and understanding what it's going to cost them before they go and have those done. Again, going back to anybody that's on that high deductible plan with the health savings account, remember that's your money that you're saving and then you're spending for those services. By shopping that out beforehand, hopefully you're able to save quite a bit of money and keep as much money in that HSA over the longevity of your lifetime, rather than spending more money than is probably necessary. Along the same lines, a free app that I always recommend to employees when I'm doing open enrollment meetings is GoodRx. If you've not downloaded that app, it's free to put it on your phone. They also have the website goodrx.com. But similar to that price transparency tool that the medical providers offer, GoodRx allows you to shop for prescription prices. About a year ago, I came down with the flu and had to get Tamiflu. And if any of you all have had to purchase Tamiflu before, it's very expensive. But before I went and purchased it, I went to GoodRx, typed in Tamiflu, and it pulled up every pharmacy that had that prescription in stock, and it showed what they were selling it as a cash price for. So it's not including your insurance discount, but it's essentially telling you what you would pay if you were to go in and purchase that prescription without any type of insurance discount. By just taking a few minutes to search it, the Tamiflu or the Target next to my office in Brentwood was about $140, and then the Walgreens that was right down from my house was $120. So immediately I got a $20 savings by just taking a little bit of time and doing a little bit of work to go out and search for that prescription coverage. Moving on to other benefits that are typically in an employer's package, the next that most people think of is going to be your dental insurance. Dental coverage has changed a lot over the past few years. One thing or one perk that I've seen a lot of companies start adding is cosmetic teeth whitening. Back earlier this year before COVID hit, I went in and had my teeth professionally whitened for the first time ever in my life at my dentist's office, because it was a new perk that was added to our dental coverage. A lot of companies have that benefit now in their plans, but just fail to communicate that to their employees. I know with all these Zoom meetings we're doing now and video meetings, maybe I'm self-conscious, but I don't want the brown coffee teeth look. I want to try to have the real pearly clean white teeth. So I think taking advantage of those teeth whitening opportunities is definitely something that not many people are utilizing. And on average, it's a benefit that costs around $600 a year. So it's not an inexpensive, or not. It's definitely not something that's inexpensive. It's a perk that is there that if you've got it, you definitely should take advantage of it. The next in the line of benefit packages items that I see is going to be your vision insurance. Now, what I'm about to tell you, I still need to do for myself this year, but I've gone in, done my eye exam this year, and nothing has significantly changed. But what I'll tell you is, I wear some computer frame glasses. I haven't changed these in a couple years, but this year I have my frames allowance that I have $150 benefit towards that. If I don't get a new pair of frames this year, it just goes away. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that $150 frame allowance that I have this year, and since I don't need computer frames or any type of other reading glasses, I'm going to go in and use that allowance for sunglasses. I'm a big fan of Ray-Bans, so I can get a $150 pair of Ray-Bans for essentially free this year. That benefit for your vision frames, whether it's sort of frames, contacts, or lenses, it's use it or lose it. So if you've got those benefits and you're eligible for this year, you've got another month or so to go in and take advantage of them before it resets again for next year.
Daniel, would you recommend that for those underutilized benefits that employers perhaps send out like intermittent reminders, or how could they help those become more utilized?
Well, since you must have read into my slides, we're going to definitely get to how to communicate this efficiently here in just a few minutes. But to answer your question, I tell employers that the old way of explaining benefits, to where you do it once a year during open enrollment by maybe passing out a packet or emailing information to the employees, is not the way to do it any longer. And if you're still doing it that way, your competitors are light years ahead of you in how they're leveraging their benefits to not only attract, but to retain employees. So if you can communicate, I have a slide here in a minute, but on average, if you can do it 26 times a year, that shows that you'll have the most success in not only educating employees on what their benefits are, but also increasing their appreciation for those benefits as well. Now, this next slide that we're on, one of the fastest growing benefits, especially this year, has been telemedicine. I started writing telemedicine plans probably 6 or 7 years ago. But for this year, pre-COVID, employers had typically 2 to 3% of all employers out there had telemedicine benefits built into their medical plan. And 6 to 7% of employers were actually offering a standalone telemedicine plan. Since COVID, our numbers are showing that up to 50% of employers are now offering telemedicine as an actual benefit paired alongside their medical, dental, vision, and other core medical products. 85% of physicians are providing phone or video consults now during this pandemic. 68% of physicians believe telehealth will have a lasting impact on how doctors see patients. 16.5 million Americans have started using telehealth in the past couple of months alone, and 88% of those new users say that they would use it again. 62% of individuals with employer-based insurance have a chronic or complex chronic disease, making up 85% of a total employer-based healthcare spending. According to an HRI report on medical cost trends, employers should consider offering new telehealth benefits or promoting those they already provide. One of my favorite examples from a client that we have here out of Murfreesboro, it's a motorcycle dealership. They put telemedicine in place for their employees late last year. The first weekend they had it, the CFO noticed on his daughter's right inside thigh that she had a softball-sized welt. And they were very concerned and were about to take her to the emergency room because they couldn't get their primary care doctor on the phone. The walk-in clinics were closed because it was after hours, and they just needed some type of assurance that their daughter was going to be fine. Now, knowing that they had put this telemedicine product in place, the CFO decided to use this first before going into that emergency room. Now, what most people don't realize about telemedicine plans is it's not just a telephonic conversation. A lot of these benefits nowadays have video capabilities like FaceTime, Skype. Any type of computer that has a webcam can utilize these video services. So what the CFO did was he called up, got a physician in about 8 minutes on the phone. That physician was out of Hendersonville, and he took the phone and did about a 15-minute analysis of her leg and the swelling. And what he ended up concluding was he thought it was a spider bite. And he recommended that instead of going to the emergency room, that couple go to their nearest pharmacy, and the doctor called in an anti-inflammatory drug that was, just a couple dollars to have filled. The couple went in, picked that up, gave it to their daughter that night, and literally the next morning when she woke up, that swelling had reduced to the size of a mosquito bite. So in this situation, it was a fantastic benefit for the family because it gave them the assurance that they had a medical provider that could give them some type of direction on how severe the situation was. But also, if you look at it from the employer standpoint, by diverting this employee away from the emergency room, where on average those can be 1,200 or more in billed costs, they've now saved that money by not having that employee go to the emergency room for a non-emergency situation. So telemedicine is absolutely becoming one of the fastest growing benefits out there. So I've talked for a minute. Quick question to the group, if anybody would like to give any remarks, but have any of you all used telemedicine, or do you all have any experiences with telemedicine that you would like to share with the group? Not, that's okay. There'll be more opportunities to discuss some other benefits here in a few minutes. So moving on to the next plan that I often see being not provided, or a lot of times it's definitely underutilized, are the ancillary benefits. With deductibles and out-of-pocket maximums on the rise, a well-designed accident, critical illness, and hospital indemnity policy protects an employee's savings and retirement plans. Medical, dental, and vision insurance pays hospitals and providers. However, ancillary benefits pay employees directly at the worst possible times in their lives. When they can't work, if they're injured, if they're experiencing maybe a death, if they're experiencing significant illness, or if they have maybe their identity stolen, that's when these plans can come into play and help alleviate those situations. You know, ancillary benefits do so much more than just round out a company's benefits program. They protect the income of employees and they protect the savings of the employees. Ancillary benefits work with medical, dental, and vision for a full 360-degree protection to help pay for the costs of daily life, not just the cost of treatment. 57% of employers are increasing their ancillary benefits offerings to help recruit and retain top talent. This is much more cost efficient than increasing the medical plan benefits. 67% of employees are experiencing financial stress, worrying about paying for out-of-pocket medical costs, and 1 in 3 employees admit to being less productive at work due to financial stress. Now, this year was the first year I ever signed up for my company's critical illness and accident plans. And the reason why I did that is because of a small benefit that very few people and very few organizations talk about. Under our plans, if I go in each year for my annual wellness exam, or if I get my teeth cleaned through my dental exam, or if I go in for my vision exam, that critical illness and that accident plan will pay me a benefit for doing that. This year for my accident plan, it paid me $150 for my wellness visit, which essentially, since my wellness visit was free through my medical plan, I made money off of it. I also made $100 off of my critical illness plan by going in and having that same wellness visit done. So I've made $250 this year by enrolling in those two plans. If I look at the actual cost for those two plans, it's only a couple hundred more dollars for the total annual premium. Now, to compound that further, back in March, I was on a business trip out in Colorado and I was in a car accident. And when I got back, I had to do a couple months worth of physical therapy. Every time I went in for those physical therapy visits, I was doing the cha-ching motion because they were paying me benefits, $50 for every doctor visit that I went in and had that physical therapy done. So a lot of plans, or a lot of employers, are offering these accident and critical illness plans, and they're not telling their employees that they have these wellness benefit stipends that essentially will pay for the premium or the costs for those plans. So if you're currently offering any type of those ancillary benefits, I would definitely go back and look at the contract language and see if that perk is in there, because if it is, for me, it makes signing up for those plans almost a no-brainer. So again, I'm gonna ask another question to the group. What benefits does your company currently offer that maybe many people are overlooking or maybe are not participating in currently? Would anybody like to provide feedback to the group?
I know for us at the chamber, we do have some ancillary services. So, you know, when you go and get your yearly checkup, you do get that stipend back. But I always need a reminder every year to do it. Like, it's a great benefit, but if I don't do it right away, then I forget. And so, like, I have to do that in actually a few weeks. And I've forgotten. I had my checkup in August, I think.
I'm the exact same way. I always forget to I guess set my claim for those benefits. And I always remember once I get to this time of year of open enrollment and my employer is reminding me that I have access to those. And as soon as I get done with that open enrollment call, I'm going to the website and I'm submitting those claims, and it takes only 4 to 5 minutes to do it. It's very, very easy. But you're 100% right, Essence. If you're not communicating and talking about this to your employers or employees, not many people of them are going to do it and take advantage of it, because it's, I like the saying, if it's out of sight, it's out of mind. So if we're not refreshing and ingraining in the memory to the employees that they have access to these benefits and that they're paying for, a lot of times they are going to go unused. Anybody else have anything to share on benefits that maybe employees at your company are underutilizing or maybe overlooking?
We have on our medical plan, I think you can sign up for like gyms at a discount that's in there.
That is definitely one that's underutilized. I know with carriers like Blue Cross Blue Shield of Tennessee, their Blue Access or Blue 365 perks, I believe is what it's called. It's definitely something that many people overlook. But you're right, you can get discounts at gym memberships like the YMCA. They also have Groupon type programs that will give you discounts at places like Academy Sports, or if you're going in and utilizing those vision benefits, they've got discounts at Target for any type of frames or sunglasses, things like that. So I always tell employees, if you're signing up for any plans, whether it's medical, dental, or vision, first thing you should do is go to that carrier's website, create your own login and your own user portal. And inside that is where all that information is going to be housed. So the carriers are banking and hoping that you're not going to go out and see all those free products. That's just, one thing that is definitely overlooked. So thank you for sharing about that. All right, so moving on to the next question that I was asked, what are some best practices for how an organization should build their total rewards package? To answer that question, I would tell you that the employee experience continues to emerge within the workplace spectrum as a significant factor towards organizational success. A recent report done by Workforce Attitudes found that 69% of workers claimed this was the most stressful time in their entire professional career, including the September 11th terror attacks and the 2008 Great Recession. 70% of workers agree that employees at their company are significantly less productive because of stress and anxiety around COVID-19. Organizations are now realizing that if they put their people first, it in turn creates a more sustainable and profitable business. Here's a quote that I just really enjoyed, which is why I put it in there. And this was done by Anthony Steffen of Deloitte. And he said, our most basic need is to have a sense of belonging and connection. When businesses engage individuals in a way that speaks to their most fundamental values, it ultimately can translate to a level of loyalty that most brands are not seeing today. The connection creates loyalty, which fuels business growth. When we focus on the human experience, we go beyond just showing up. We build relationships that matter. We seize attention. We build love, inspire dreams, create connections, respect and recognize individuals, and we build confidence. Once we have committed to putting our people first, the next step is to understand the makeup and the demographics of our employee population. In today's world, the average employee base represents more generations than ever before, and that can certainly impact your engagement efforts. Don't even try to call an employee from Generation Z on the phone. That's just not effective. They shudder at the idea of a phone call and answering it and talking to somebody. Research indicates that generational complexities make it difficult for organizations to decipher which values and aspects of a benefits package are worth the investment. Let's take a closer look at how a lack of understanding and around generational preferences has a negative impact on employee retention and satisfaction. 76% of employees believe their employer has a responsibility for their health and well-being. Over 90% of boomers report needing healthcare coverage, and even though millennials see medical insurance as less desirable than other generations, 70% still want the coverage to be available. Boomers and traditionalists rank healthcare coverage as the most important benefit because they are at a point in their lives when they utilize this benefit at a higher rate. The traditional method of approaching workplace arrangements is taking a toll on employers. 72% of millennials attribute lack of flexibility as the primary reason for dissatisfaction in the workplace. Over 55.3% of millennials that are full-time employees are females. And of the working mothers in this generation, 58% report that being a working mother has made it harder to get ahead of work. Working parents often utilize flexible work environments and competitive paid time off arrangements. An absence of these highly desired benefits can result in dissatisfaction among your millennial population. Gen Xers tend to carry the most dependents on their plan and find themselves regularly utilizing the benefits. Surprisingly, medical benefits are not the top priority for this group. Financial stability is. Over 1/4 of Gen Xers say that the desire for financial stability motivates them to stay in a job. Taking a deeper look, debt, like student loan debt, is still a significant concern for younger workers. 63% of millennials have at least $10,000 of student debt, and nearly half of the Generation Z workforce is concerned about their student loan debt. It's a struggle for employees to feel financially stable, and when they are drowning in loan repayment, it's just hard for them to focus on what they're doing at work. These groups value financial wellness education. Overlooking this preference could result in higher than necessary turnover from one of your largest demographics in your workforce. Over 44 million Americans collectively hold nearly $1.5 trillion in student loan debt. This means that roughly 1 in 4 American adults are paying off student loans currently. The MIT Age Lab report found that 73% of Americans say they expect to begin or increase their retirement contributions once their student loan debts are paid off. But most people don't pay off their student loans until they're in their 40s. Student loan repayment assistance right now is the 4th most requested employee benefit that we hear from employer groups. The goal in understanding your company demographics and your employee makeup is to understand your population and to develop a targeted plan that envelops the various preferences of these multiple generations. So my next question to the group: how does your organization decide what benefits to offer to your employees currently? How do you all decide your benefit packages and the different plans that are made available to your employees? Anybody have anything to say?
Don't be afraid. Please speak up. We'd love to hear from you guys.
How about another question? What benefits do you think cater to certain generations more than others? Or what plans do you think work best for certain generations?
Well, I know as a millennial, I have plenty of friends that take advantage of the HSAs and the FSAs, and plenty that are taking tuition reimbursement when it is available through their employer. So for millennials and probably even Gen Xers, when it's time to get a master's, or Gen Zers, when it's time to get a master's or go back to school, that's going to be very important to them. So I think that's something that employers should definitely be considering if they are not making those available.
Well, I definitely still I see very few employers offering the student loan repayment options. And this slide, really struck home to me because thinking into the future, that right here, it shows that by 2025, 75% of the workforce will be millennials. With that being the case, the vast majority of those are still going to have student loan repayment debts. So if you're trying to attract a millennial workforce, and if you're not offering them a student loan repayment benefit, they're probably going to go and seek that elsewhere from another employer that perhaps is offering that. So just another interesting benefit to consider for some of your groups. Anybody else have any benefits that they think cater best to certain generations?
Well, this is Lawrence from Lee Company. I guess going back to your first question, though, about how do you figure out what benefits to offer, and I know a lot of the work that we do is, of course, we do market research and we try to get as much data as we can there, but we also compare ourselves to our competitors and our peer partners, and then we also use a lot of internal survey data where we're asking our folks what are they looking for in a good benefit package.
Thanks for sharing, Lawrence. You're 100% right. I think benchmarking your current plans against your competitors is something that you should be doing at least every 2 to 3 years as an organization. A lot of times you can lean heavily on your broker support for that information. And I think understanding your competitors and how they're developing their benefits and how they're communicating that can a lot of times be gleaned by looking at websites like Glassdoor or Indeed and seeing the feedback and the responses that former employees are giving those in companies. So that's generally one of the first places I will go to when I'm meeting with a new company or a new prospect. I will go to those websites and read the feedback of the employees to make that employer aware, because a lot of times those employers aren't even going out and reading those, and they have no idea the frustrations of some of their employees. So Lawrence, I thank you again for sharing. I'm glad to hear that Lead Company is taking the time and putting the effort into understanding your population and to provide that I guess best in class benefits package to those people. And I would say that because of that effort that you've put into doing that, it's obvious that to me and to probably others on the call, Lead Company is definitely one of the most sought after companies for your industry by potential hires here locally. And you all are held in high esteem by just a lot of other organizations also outside of that industry for the way you conduct your business. So thank you again for sharing. I appreciate that. All right, we're getting close on time, so to move on to the final question that I was asked to maybe discuss for today is, what can employers do to maximize employee engagement and improve employee awareness and appreciation of their benefits? In normal times, educating employees on their company benefits and showing them the value of their offerings can be difficult. When a pandemic hits and your face-to-face interaction is taken away, that education process becomes even more difficult. Employers spend nearly a third of an employee's total compensation on benefits, and yet many employers don't properly educate their employees on the value of those benefits. Just earlier this week, it was on Tuesday, my sister-in-law called me. She's in open enrollment, and she's got her benefits package that her employer emailed her. Now, this is a large medical group. It's got about 600 or 700 employees. And the way they did their benefit communication in open enrollment this year was by sending an email with a benefits guide to every employee. And then it instructed those employees to go on to their online benefits portal and to make elections. It didn't give any type of explanation of the benefits. It didn't go into any detail or give any type of guidance to those employees for what they should choose. One of the first things that stood out to me is with this organization, if an employee chose that high deductible plan that's paired with a health savings account, this employer gives that person $2,000 a year, which for me, that is well over the average HSA contribution of an organization. And the way this company communicated that benefit was by one sentence that was right above their medical summary. And it was, not italicized or boldened or anything. And I was flabbergasted. That is an incredible benefit that their employees are receiving, that the company is not taking advantage to brag or to make known or to really, highlight that benefit. Looking at the other benefits that were in that package, my sister-in-law just was having to figure everything out on her own, and not being a benefits expert, which, nobody is, she had to call me and get my guidance to help her with that. So, that example shows me that many organizations need to use this COVID-19 pandemic as a catalyst to reevaluate their current talent strategy and to address inefficiencies and opportunities to better align with changing business needs. In a recent Society of Human Resource Management survey of 2,278 participants, 83% of employers said that they are going to adjust their business practices in light of this pandemic. Of those, 32% are offering additional employee benefit options this year, while another 18% are considering it. To truly value an employee benefit, an employee must understand the benefit that's being offered to them. And there are many approaches which can be deployed to help with this education process. A strategic plan, which includes the education piece, is vital to showing the value and keeping both the employees as well as their spouse and dependents in the know. A successful approach that many of my clients have deployed this year is a multi-channel digital communication strategy. The goal of this approach is to reach employees and their dependents in a number of different ways. I've seen companies use animated videos, internal social media campaigns, healthcare consumerism apps, online employee benefits enrollment portals, text campaigns, interactive benefit guides, and many other options. COVID-19 will have a lasting impact, and employees will continue to expect flexibility and remote work arrangements even after we fully emerge from this pandemic. If you perhaps have an older workforce or one that has been somewhat reluctant to embrace technology and change in the past, well, the good news is that you aren't the one who is forcing them to make change during this predicament. By now, I'm sure many of you feel confident in your team's ability to use technology to not only complete their work in ways that they've never relied on before, but also to communicate with their loved ones and to find comfort and entertainment in a quarantine world. So as a result, you can also confidently explore new and innovative methods of communicating digitally with your team members. To keep gaining employee understanding and appreciation of a company's benefits package, it's important to do it year round. Essence, this is the question that you asked me earlier. From our findings, we've seen that for optimal employee engagement, you have to do it 26 times a year, whether that's doing a couple text messages, doing a few email blasts, maybe sending out those enrollment guides to home addresses, or doing video meetings online with your employees. However you do it frequently. Don't just do it during an open enrollment period. Let's face it, benefits are confusing, and we all live very busy lives. And generally speaking, like I mentioned earlier, if something's out of sight, it's probably going to be out of mind as well. So, COVID has also redefined how and where we work. Gartner said, we're being forced into the world's largest work from home experiment, and so far, it hasn't been easy for a lot of organizations to implement. When speaking with many organizational leaders like yourselves, they resonate with how the rapid plunge into remote work has been a learning curve for all. The makeup of a company's workforce and how, when, and where it conducts work has revolutionized at a remarkable pace. The virtual employee experience is a critical component of an engagement strategy. Handing out an open enrollment packet and assuming employees will look at it and will show it to their dependents, it just doesn't work. They're just not going to understand the benefits to a level that they need to. Employees need to be engaged in the content in order to retain and understand its value. A virtual meeting where a specialist not only briefs employees on the basics of the plan, but also gets into important concepts about how to best utilize the plan can be a great way to inform employees and to get them excited about their options. Walking employees through examples of cost savings can also help drive home value. For example, you might want to illustrate the cost impact of going to facility A versus going to facility B, and how to help control costs. As we talked about earlier with my example of my wife going for her ultrasound. While many companies recognize the accelerated need to adjust and evolve to typical business and people operations to accommodate a new world of work, many fail to see the benefit of doing the same with their employee benefits strategy. Since the shift to remote work, the money companies typically spend on traveling and physical office space can now be invested back into the employees to keep them engaged, which equates to more than $11,000 on average per employee per year back into the organization. Failure to recognize the lineage between a more aligned virtual benefit strategy and overall productivity of your remote culture puts your company at risk. Productivity is no longer limited to a 9-to-5 offering. Flexible hours lets employees work around their personal responsibilities and obligations, leading to a more loyal employee because they have a better balance between their personal and professional lives. I know this definitely strikes home with a lot of millennials. Another benefit that we've seen as companies started to transition over to this working remotely and working virtually environment is providing a home office stipend. Nearly 80% of working Americans live paycheck to paycheck, which means they might not have the ability to build out a home office area that is comfortable for them to work out of. Another benefit has been giving mental health and wellness allowances to employees. With the pandemic lasting longer than anticipated, companies are recognizing the impact that has on the mental health of their workforce. Also, companies have seen gym membership subsidies. Mental health apps are being made free to employees. Hiring a health coach. Pivot existing perks into remote-friendly ones. For companies who are used to providing city transportation perks or parking passes, consider turning this into a travel stipend or a discount for them to use for a vacation or mental health retreat. Also, since in-office snacks and drinks and occasional catered meals are at a standstill, companies are instead relying on delivery services. For example, some employers are offering a monthly lunch to their team members through Uber Eats and sending them snack boxes. One thing that our company decided to do a couple months ago was, since so many parents are now having to work from home and they're having their kids at home as well at the same time doing online classes, our company has provided every single full-time employee a tutoring program that helps parents educate their kids on different type of subject matters. So these are just some examples of outside the box new benefit ideas that employers are starting to offer their employees to help cope with this working from home, working virtual environment nowadays. So my question to the group, some of you might not have yet transitioned to the working from home environment, but for those of you who have, what has your company done in the past few months to make that transition an easier process? Or what type of new perks or benefits has your company rolled out to employees this year to also help through this transition?
Well, we are still working from the office, but my husband works for a tech company here in the Nashville area. And so they all got a tech stipend so that they could set up their home offices. And they did a few virtual like happy hours where they were able to get snacks through Uber Eats and things like what you've mentioned, Daniel.
We do our virtual happy hour on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And it's definitely one of my favorite business meetings each week. I was watching Fox 17 this morning news as I was drinking my coffee, and they talked about a new benefit idea that I had not heard of, but here locally, some Airbnbs have started to do remote virtual concerts because their Airbnb spaces are not being utilized. So they're bringing in musicians and they're recording this almost at-home concert experience, and then they're broadcasting that out to organizations, and companies are essentially renting the Airbnb space for this, work from home concert experience. And when I heard that this morning, I thought, wow, that's a really cool idea. I'd love maybe on a Thursday afternoon, 3:30, 4 o'clock to have a virtual happy hour concert that I get to experience with some of my other colleagues, but I get to do it from the comfort of my house. I thought just that's an outside of the box idea that, if you're taking the time to provide something like that to your employees, that's gonna set home with them. They're gonna appreciate that, and they're gonna value that. And that's probably gonna make them a stickier employer or employee to your organization, and makes it less likely for them to leave. And again, the point of having a well-rounded and robust employee benefits package is to leverage it as a tool to attract and to retain talent. Because like we've learned from Christy and from Chris's two webinars before this, here locally, we're still in a war for talent, and especially in Rutherford County with how many open positions we have. The talent is out there. We just have to figure out a way that we can differentiate ourselves and make us appear unique, and to make it to seem where those employees just, they can't go somewhere else. Your options are just too good to be out there. So that's going to conclude my time for today. We're right at the 1 hour mark. In order to end today, I would tell you all, I really do appreciate your time. If I can ever help you answer any questions with, what you're doing for yourself from a benefits package standpoint, I'd love to talk to you about that. Or if you have any questions after, reviewing what we've discussed today, here's my contact information. I don't charge by the hour like lawyers. I'm free to talk to. So if I can be a resource for any of you in any way, I'd love a chance to help partner with you and just to provide some feedback. So thank you all again for your time today. In essence, I guess I'll turn it back over to you for closing remarks.
Thanks, Daniel. I think one thing that I really want to drive home is if you're not working with your marketing team on any of these, like pushing out those messages, internal marketing is a great way to do that. And I'm not going to say you should differentiate your messages based on employees' age, but perhaps there are 3 messages you can highlight in your emails. You can automate your emails and highlight 3 things each, every couple of months that will cause your employees to remember, say, oh yeah, that is a benefit. Oh, that's a great benefit. Why haven't I taken advantage of this? And you can personalize it and make it really fun. That's something that'll like Daniel said, make it sticky. I previously worked at Ingram, and we kind of dabbled in that. It was a fun project for the team, and it also caused employees to remember and utilize those benefits that you are paying for as an employer. So if anybody has any final questions, please feel free to chime in. And if not, we are going to give you, back your 1 minute from this webinar as we end. So thank you everyone for attending. This will be available on YouTube. If you want to share it with anyone else in your department, feel free to do so, or any peers that you have who work in HR or recruiting. Thank you guys.
See you, everybody.
Thanks, Daniel. Sorry we had a quiet bunch today. So